This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. Investing involves risk. Do your own research and consult a professional before investing. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Recently, Harvest launched 2 new ETFs, HPYE and HPYB. Some viewers asked me in the comments to analyze them, but I hesitated for a long time whether or not to make a video about these 2 ETFs. This is because people always get very excited when they see new ETFs come out, yet every time I do a review video discussing ETF structures, I inevitably end up pouring cold water on everyone's enthusiasm. First off, a disclaimer. I personally have no plans to buy these 2 ETFs for the time being. I am maintaining a wait-and-see attitude. Also, what I'm about to say represents only my own subjective opinion and does not constitute purchasing advice. So, in today's video, I'll talk about what these 2 ETFs are actually doing and the reasons why I'm not buying them. Let's get right into today's video. First, let's have a quick intro on the fundamentals of these 2 ETFs. HPYE primarily invests in dominant US industry leaders. HPYB, on the other hand, focuses on Canada's Big 6 banks. Their common selling points are very direct. First, they pay distributions twice a month, targeting annual 14% yield. Second, they both utilize what the official documents call moderate leverage. Third, and most critically, they enhance yields by simultaneously selling active covered calls and puts. Management fee is 0.65%. Sounds perfect, right? Holding good stocks, collecting double rent via options, and using leverage to amplify returns. Let's dive deeper in this strategy. What is so special about these 2 Harvest ETFs is that they dynamically sell puts and sell calls to earn premiums. To clarify this, let's take HPYB as an example. Many people buy it thinking Canada's Big 6 banks are stable, wanting to collect dividends while enjoying the long-term capital appreciation of bank stocks. But if we take a look at this officially published fact sheet, you'll find it is completely different from what you imagine. Look at the exposure data on the right. Its underlying stock position is only about 75%. About 25% of the position is allocated to T-bills and similar fixed income bonds. We'll talk about why there is a bond allocation later. But look carefully at the structure. Only about 37.5% of the stocks are free to fully enjoy a surge in bank stocks. The other 37.5% are used to sell covered calls. This means that even if the covered calls are sold out of the money, your upside potential is discounted by at least 25% since the equity position isn't full to begin with, and within that 75% equity, half is capped by covered calls. Therefore, theoretically, there isn't that much potential for price growth. Second, let's talk about the sell-put part. Regarding selling covered calls, I believe most of you are familiar with it. It caps the upside, sacrificing growth potential in exchange for premiums, which is the source of the dividend cash flow. If selling covered calls just means earning less, then selling puts introduces the possibility of losing money. Harvest always claims that selling puts allows you to buy low, sell high. But what is the reality? First, we must be clear on one point. When a fund sells a put option to earn premiums, it assumes the obligation to buy the stock at a price higher than the market price during a drop. For example, if stock A is currently priced at $100, and the fund sells a put option at $90, collecting a $1 premium. If stock A falls to $80, breaking the put strike price, this means the fund has to take over the shares at $90. Although it received a $1 premium, it has actually lost $9. Since selling puts requires collateral, this is the reason why there is about 25% in fixed income. Because when stocks fall below the put strike price, the fund is forced to borrow money to buy about 40% to 50% of the position. This is also the reason I speculate why these 2 ETFs have a maximum leverage ratio of 150%. Regarding selling puts, we can divide the outcome into 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. The price doesn't break the put's strike price. You don't need to buy low-price stocks at a high price, and you get to keep your premium. Scenario 2. Unfortunately, the stock has broken below the put's strike price. You can only take over the shares at a high price. Although you have the premium during a significant crash, the effect of the premium is often negligible. So we can summarize this structure. When rising with a 75% equity position, only 37.5% of the position can run at full speed. The other half has its gains limited due to covered calls. When falling, your 75% stock position is taking real losses. At the same time, you are shouldering an extra 40% obligation to take assignment. So let's anticipate the performance of this type of fund. First, it might indeed fall less. If it doesn't break the put strike price, since it only has 75% exposure, the drawdown will be smaller. Even if it breaks the put strike price, since it sells out of the money options and has a premium buffer, Compared to a fund with the same holdings but with 25% leverage, it will fall less. Although we can anticipate less growth as not all its positions are equities, it does lower the volatility. But what happens when the market crashes and then recovers? First, to maintain the fund's original structure, the shares acquired from assignment will be actively used to sell covered calls. This is done, firstly, to get the fund out of the situation of using borrowed money to hold positions, and secondly, to free up this portion of the portfolio so it can continue to sell puts in the future. Then, the portion that was originally selling covered calls will continue to sell covered calls. This means that when the market recovers, the cover ratio of the covered calls will be very high. This implies that during a market recovery, which is usually when prices rise the fastest, the fund may aggressively use more covered calls to limit growth. We can see that the official strategy clearly states one sentence: sell equities into rally. So, no matter how Harvest claims buy low, sell high, the factual reality of selling puts to take assignment and selling calls to offload stock is actually buy high, sell low. Seeing this, someone will always say, Harvest fund managers will adjust dynamically based on volatility. They will buy at the absolute low and sell at the highest point, blah blah. First, we must be clear on one point. No one can predict the market. If fund managers could accurately predict the market, then all covered call ETFs would outperform their underlying assets, because the manager could set the strike price at the highest point every time, setting a strike price that would never be triggered. But what is the reality? 99% of covered call ETFs fail to beat their underlying assets. This indirectly reflects that fund managers simply cannot predict the market. If they can't accurately predict the market, then buy low, sell high is more of a sales pitch than a fact. Just as I cannot predict the market, I cannot assert that HPYE and HPYB will definitely perform poorly. As analyzed above, as long as the underlying assets don't surge or crash, in a sideways choppy market, HPYE and HPYB will perform excellently. Finally, let's talk about the reason why I choose to watch from the sidelines. It's because I don't understand them. Although I've said so much, I must admit that I haven't 100% deciphered the mechanisms of HPYE and HPYB. HPYE and HPYB both use active management. In active management, what are the strike prices for the puts and calls? How are they set? If bought stocks on a put, how long will they be held? If the market doesn't recover, do they hold it forever? If the market recovers, will they sell the assigned portion immediately? All of these depend on the fund manager's subjective judgment. I also cannot backtest this kind of human uncertainty. However, this strategy of selling both puts and calls isn't unique. For example, BMO's ZPay and Dynamics DXQ do this. Those interested can check them out. To summarize, if you believe the future is a sideways market, then these two ETFs might be worth considering. But for me personally, if I don't understand the strategy and I can't calculate the risk, I don't touch it. This is my basic investment principle, and I hope to provide everyone with a different perspective. I'm Old Fish. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. See you in my next video.